GuestReady had a pretty interesting strategy in that what we did is we hired maybe one person in each city, and we launched in 6 different cities at once. The growth plans were always very ambitious from the beginning. So I mean, to say 1,600, yeah, it is still a surprise because it's still pretty crazy to think like in 3 years that's kind of where we're at, and that's kind of been our strategy.
This is episode number 50 of the Short-Term Rental Success Stories podcast. Are you an investor that's looking to have your home professionally managed? Go to cohostit.com for more information. Welcome back to Short-Term Rental Success Stories. I'm your host, Julian Sage. This is a show where I talk to hosts about their journeys in starting and growing their short-term rental business. My goal is that you'll be able to walk away with practical information that'll help you become a better host and learn how to scale your business. Like any exceptional host, we all strive for 5-star reviews, so please go on over to iTunes and let us know what you enjoy, as it really helps support the show. If you haven't done so already, go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation, to connect with the community. Hey, what is going on, Host Nation? I am super excited to be back again with you this week. Firstly, I want to say thank you so much to the Host Nation family for allowing me to be able to share all of these success stories with you. This podcast has truly changed my life. And if it wasn't for everybody that is a part of the Host Nation and constantly supporting me, we're at over 70 reviews right now on iTunes. The Host Nation family, we have over 3,000 people in our group. We're getting tens of thousands of downloads and listens a month. I love seeing and welcoming everybody into our community. You guys have really just changed my life so much. And because of this show and because of all your support, I wanted to just keep on moving forward and striving for more. Because of this, I met my business partner, mentor, and friend, John Bell. We started another podcast, Vacation Rental Machine. I was able to get myself from struggling, just getting by, now being to almost financially free. All of this while still serving in the Coast Guard. And now we have a management company together, and we're also coming out with our course, the Vacation Rental Machine Formula. We have a book that's coming out really soon. We have an awesome, super tight-knit community of B&B Empire Builders, which is our private mastermind group. All these things in 50 weeks. I never would have imagined that my life would be where it is right now. And it's all thanks to you, the Host Nation family. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you so much for the impact that you've had on my life and what you've allowed me to do, which is to help change other people's lives. That's really the biggest calling on my heart, is helping other people be able to change their lives and claim that time freedom back. This business has truly changed my life, and my goal is to help at least 100 people. If I can help 100 people claim their time freedom back so they don't have to struggle the same way that I did when my dad was passing away from cancer, and I just needed to be able to spend more time with him. But because I was stuck with the job, and when you don't have money, you have to pay with time, I was in a situation that I did not want to be in. So now my mission is to help other people claim that time freedom back. These past 50 weeks has been me trying to claim my time freedom back, but we're right there. And now that I'm able to take care of myself and my family, I want to be able to help other people change their lives as well. So like I said, John and I have been working on a program called the VRM Formula. And what we want to do is give you guys a special training where we're going to be peeling back the layers of the VRM Formula and exactly what it is. When people come into the space, it can be overwhelming with how much information there is and all these different things that you need to learn. And there wasn't ever really a clear path. But in this training, you're going to be learning about rental arbitrage, co-hosting, John and I's own stories, and then exactly how to go from start to finish for building your own vacation rental machine Airbnb business. This program that we've been working on is really the culmination of months and months of hard work. I've been investing so much time and money into this program because I truly believe that this is going to be a thing that will change your life. I don't want people to just listen to content and then not take action. We've been designing this program so that it really is step by step. This isn't general information. I mean, we cover a lot of information on Vacation Rental Machine podcast and the Short-Term Rental Success Stories podcast. But what's more important than information is implementation. And that's the goal of the VRM Formula, is that we can walk you along every single step so that by the time you are finished with the program, you'll have your very first and profitable vacation rental machine that is able to run on autopilot. Being able to pick up a property is one thing, but being able to automate it so that you do truly have that time freedom is completely different. So if you'd like to join our live training, go to shorttermsage.com/earlybird. And when you subscribe to the email list, we will let you know when the next live training becomes available. And you'll also get our special early bird price. And since this is episode 50, I wanted to do a very, very special episode. So in this episode, we have the special honor of speaking with Shannon Hyde. Shannon is the head of global operations for the property management company GuestReady, which is one of the largest property management companies in Europe with over 1,600 properties, up to 2,000 under management all around the globe. He was one of the first employees in their London market and helped grow the company from 3 properties to the over 1,600 that they have now. This is a really special episode because I've never been able to talk to somebody that has over 1,600 properties. That is crazy. And Shannon is just such an awesome guy. He shares so much information in this episode. And you can tell in this episode, I'm really trying to just dig and find out as much information as I can. So I hope you all benefit. Shannon shares a lot of really good insights on building both a property management company and the PMS software to automate and run their business, which has fueled their growth. And Shannon actually did something really special for us, which he allowed us to be able to look at his property management software behind the scenes. This is something that they've developed in-house in how they manage their over 1,600 properties. I've never seen anything quite like this, to be able to see such a large player in the space just revealing so much information. So if you'd like to see a behind-the-scenes look at the property management software that Shannon talks about in this episode, then go to shorttermsage.com/rental ready. So like guest ready, except rental ready. You can check out that bonus episode after the show. If you like my show notes for this episode, go to shorttermsage.com/STR50. Or if you like my show notes sent directly to your inbox every week, then go to shorttermsage.com/show notes. With all that being said, on to this week's conversation. Hey, welcome back, Host Nation, to another episode of Short-Term Rental Success Stories. In this episode, I have the special honor of speaking with Shannon Hyde. Shannon is working with GuestReady. He started at the foundation. I'm super, super excited. This is going to be such an awesome episode. I highly recommend you listen to this one once more. But Shannon, would you please introduce yourself to the Host Nation, let them know who you are and what inspired you to get into short-term rentals?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Julian. And great to be on the podcast. It's awesome to share my story and hopefully give you guys some interesting insights into GuestReady. So my background, I've been working at GuestReady for a bit over 3.5 years now. I joined when we had about 5 properties in London. And like over the last 3.5 years, we've grown that company to about 1,600 properties in total. So it's been a pretty crazy ride, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of sleepless nights, 3 a.m. key handovers and this type of thing. Before GuestReady, I was working for a company called One Fine Stay, who do like luxury rentals in London and a few other cities, but London was like their main footprint, and they got acquired by Accor in 2016. So they were kind of one of the first movers into the short-term rental space. They sort of launched around the time as Airbnb, and that was a pretty crazy journey as well, sort of like managing these uber luxury apartments in London and having like guests, with hot tubs and throwing wild parties and sort of thing. So yeah, that's kind of my story in terms of why I got into short-term rentals. I mean, I think the rise of Airbnb has been really interesting in terms of like monetizing like an asset that otherwise would sit empty. And like I think it's really cool how people are sort of moving towards like working remotely and being able to sort of travel and not be stuck in fixed locations. And I think because of that, means that you can monetize your property when you're away and that type of thing. And for me personally, as a host, I've been able to travel and monetize my property when I'm away, and it's pretty much paid for all my holidays. So that's like a huge win as to why you would do short-term rentals.
So you started with GuestReady when they had 5 properties. I mean, did you become a founder, or was it just like, hey, they saw you working at One Fine Stay and they're like, hey, this guy is rocking it with their operations, let's just pull him on over? How did that relationship turn out?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know Alex is our CEO. He just reached out to me on LinkedIn and was like, starting this new company. I think you'd be a really good fit for it. And at the time I was looking to join another startup, but something in a bit more sort of early stage, because I mean, One Fine Stay was kind of pretty well matured at that point, and they were just sort of about to get acquired. So yeah, I didn't really know what I was signing up for and getting myself into. Maybe there's a bit of naivety with that, but at the same time, it was a pretty exciting sort of prospect. So yeah, when he reached out to me, he was like, do you want to help me build this thing? And I was like, yeah, it sounds awesome. Let's do it.
I'm looking at I remember seeing GuestReady's name before we talked, Shannon, because I was actually looking online at, world's top 20 vacation rental companies. There's this blog article on Medium, and they have this really cool like infographic with like the map. And then GuestReady is actually on that. It says you guys are based out of Paris, but they say that you have 2,000 rentals.
Yeah. So it kind of fluctuates. I mean, in Europe, there's a big high season in the summer, so we sort of scale up and scale down over the summer, and we have a lot of part-time hosts that turn on and off like their properties when they're away and that type of thing. So 2,000 properties, like on a good month, that's what we would get to. But we probably I don't know like how many we have sort of in our software that are sort of like hosts can come back and that type of thing. But we do have a lot of sort of part-time hosts that come and go.
Okay, so you guys, at the moment you have around 1,600 properties. These are full service management, or what? How do you do your management?
Yeah, so we provide like a full management model. For that, it's a sort of turnkey solution for an owner where like they can be completely away. I mean, we have some investors that don't live in the countries that we operate in, and we manage end to end everything to do with the rental. So we provide furnishing solutions in some cases, but we do like full cleaning, maintenance, check in, check out, pricing, optimization, guest communication, like the sort of full suite of services that go into like this sort of business.
And how many states or countries are you guys operating out of?
I think it's 6 different countries. It could be more. It's either 6 or 8. I can never. It's UK, Portugal, UAE, Hong Kong, Malaysia, and I think there might be one more that I'm missing. And France, yeah, France actually, that's quite a big one. So yeah, 6 different countries. I think we're in about maybe 12 or 13 different cities. But we're in like mainly focused around London and Paris, probably our 2 biggest.
3 years. You started in August 2016. Right now this interview, it's January of 2020. I mean that's some fast growth. What did it look like when you first joined the team at 5 properties and someone's reaching out to you on LinkedIn saying, hey, we're starting this company. Would you want to join our startup? Could you even have guessed that you would have been over 1,600 properties in this short amount of time and spanning, across the globe at this point?
Yeah, I mean, when we first started, GuestReady had a pretty interesting strategy in that what we did is we hired maybe one person in each city, and we launched in 6 different cities at once. So we launched in London, Paris, Hong Kong, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, and Amsterdam as well. And we just basically tried to get traction in all those markets just to see, if we could get a bunch of properties together and sort of raise some money out of that. And quite quickly, we saw some really good growth in some markets like London and Paris, always really good for us. But then some of the other markets we had to shut down after a few months, or like 6 to 12 months after we launched, just because, I guess for various reasons, but mainly because like the demand for guests and hosts wasn't as high as maybe we expected initially. So I mean, like the growth plans were always very ambitious from the beginning. So I mean, to say 1,600, yeah, it is still a surprise because it's still pretty crazy to think like in 3 years that's kind of where we're at. But at the same time, yeah, you kind of need to move fast to break things, and that's kind of been our strategy.
You guys had like a macaroni plate approach. You just threw everything out there, said, hey, we'll see which markets are going to pick up. And that's where you went from?
Yeah, exactly.
What does it take to be able to scale to that many properties? I mean, you guys are doing something right if you were able to do this. Is this just like a different type of are you guys doing like a different model or a different type of business? Because lots of people, they start property management companies, but a lot of times it's just the smaller operations, and if they do scale, maybe it's like maybe 100 properties, maybe 200 properties, but you guys have just like blown up. How do you do that?
Yeah, so I think we've always really focused on service quality as being like a really key important part of our business, especially to our hosts, because the owners are at the end of the day are the ones that if you can keep them around, that's what's going to allow you to scale. Like if you churn your hosts, you don't really have a business that's sustainable. So we always try to focus on that to begin with. I guess what we were able to do is, by launching in sort of 6 different cities, we had this like really big mentality of like sharing knowledge between all the cities whilst we were sort of finding best practices. And so we were able to really share knowledge across like different parts of the business to try and like optimize like our marketing strategy or like, our guest experience strategy. And that was pretty cool to be able to do that, because it meant that like we had a lot of different ideas, especially people from like different cultures as well, that would give us like a lot of different insights into the business. I mean, in terms of the growth itself, like I guess we've done that through sort of two different channels. We've done it through like organic growth, which is like, in terms of building a sustainable business, but also like getting more hosts from like, different marketing channels, but also promoting referrals internally of hosts referring others. And I think that that channel in and of itself like has been really good, and that you only really get that from providing a good service to your hosts. But also we have made a few acquisitions as part of our journey, which has allowed us to grow our portfolio in size, but also grow our team and knowledge and all that type of thing.
So you said there's two aspects. There's the operations, and then there's the marketing. Without good operations, your marketing, is kind of pointless, because you can't grow if you're not able to produce. As far as operations go, I mean, when you started at 5 properties, and you were the operations head of operations, what were you doing that was so unique, or that was able to stand out and compete against everybody else? Because I mean, 3 years ago, I mean, Airbnb wasn't new, short-term renting wasn't new, and I'm sure that there was a lot of people in the space, but you guys have been able to make a serious impact.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we always, like, as I said, like we focused really on like on our hosts and making sure that they were always really happy. When we were a lot smaller, I think we could really focus on providing like a really, really personalized service to hosts. Like when it comes to especially managing people's sort of primary residences, as we'd call them, which are like, homes where people ordinarily live in them, but they're away, say, months or a few times a year type thing. Those are the hosts that they really need like special attention, because like they have an emotional connection to their asset. So we were trying to differentiate ourselves from our competitors by doing that. And I think as we got a lot bigger, the sort of value proposition stayed the same. Like we've always had, like personalized account managers for each property, and those like, account managers go to the properties and they have good relationships with the owners. But as we got bigger, I think we were able to sort of provide a different suite of services that are more geared towards, say, like yield, or like, revenue management as being like, say, a really strong point of our business, because we sort of had the scale to start to centralize those functions and hire like, people that can dedicate all the time into that.
What did your team look like when you first started out? Was this a company that was just kind of funded with venture capital right away, or was it after you got to a certain point that you started really just skyrocketing? When was the tipping point?
Yeah, I mean, like to begin with, it was we didn't have like venture backed. We weren't venture backed for like maybe a year to year and a half until after we started. So we had the founders, like they did raise a bit of seed money to begin with, but it was only very small amounts. So we were, pretty much like pretty scrappy to begin with. Like, I mean, like all the founders and stuff were getting involved in the business quite heavily in terms of like, the daily operations and that sort of stuff. And I remember like in London, like, after about 2 months, like Alex, who's our CEO, was like to me, I'm not going to do any more check-ins. You need to like solve this problem type thing. And I was like, oh no, like, what do I do now? Sort of thing. But yeah, like from the beginning, it was super scrappy, which was a lot of fun,
What did your team look like? If you were preparing to launch, what did that look like? Because you were operations, but you also had a CEO. What else did you have?
Yeah, so I launched like the London city with one of my colleagues, who's our UK director now. He was basically our London city manager as such. So we sort of split the duties between me being focused on like the guests and everything sort of like supplier related, like, maintenance, cleaning and that type of thing. And he would deal with the property owners and then sales, like new leads that would come in. So we, our roles like over time, like as the company grew, changed quite quickly. We sort of had to review things on like almost like a monthly basis, just to make sure that like there's, the accountability for certain tasks was getting done. And as you grow, like, people start to be spread more thin, but you have to have more structure in place. So we would have to, juggle the resources. And so, just have like, bi-weekly team meetings and just be like, okay, you're responsible for this. And that would change quite a lot, when you sort of 2 people and then 3 people and then 4 people. And then after that, you kind of start to get a bit more structure in place and have people more accountable for specific departments. And that's kind of how it grew up from there. One thing that we did, which was interesting, we like those like functions were very much localized from the beginning. So like, for example, the guys in Paris, they would be dealing with all of their guest comms in Paris, and the guys in London would be dealing with their own guest comms. And after a certain point, we did start to centralize those functions so that we could have like, better like standards across all of our markets, but also like, specialize people more in those functions. So we set up like a big team in Malaysia. So we're already operating in Kuala Lumpur, but we sort of started to centralize a guest communications team there, which was covering like all the company, all in terms of English speaking markets. And then that was quite good for us because then we were able to sort of grow in different areas of like, different cities, and it wasn't like impacting, that team that's like highly localized there.
Being across the country, just to start off, I mean, that's got to be, a lot of people get overwhelmed when they have, maybe different people, different cleaners in, just like another state, another city. But you guys were across the world. Were you just repeating what you were doing at like one centralized location at different locations, or did you have like what does that look like when you have multiple locations and different amounts of properties under management?
Yeah, so I think one thing that we've always tried to localize is the host relationship. We have local account managers in all of our cities and that type of thing. I think property management is a very like relationship driven business, and to try and have, say, like a central team for that, I don't really think works that well. I mean, you can do it, but I don't think in terms of like creating a good experience with your host and a good brand, that's not necessarily the best choice. For guests, I think maybe it's a bit different because like they have, when you're trying to standardize like a product that the guest is getting, you kind of want it to be the same. So having one team manager across different locations actually works pretty well. So that's kind of the way I would look at it, or how we dealt with it internally.
What did your team look like initially? Like how many people did you have, and what were their different roles when you just had like, let's say five units in the Paris market?
Yeah, so we sort of split it into anything sort of host related and anything guest related. So guests for us was like operations, and then and host stuff was like account management and sales. So it was sort of split. I mean, when we first started in some cities, like if we had sort of less than 5 or 10 units, we might have just one person sort of doing all those functions. And that in and of itself created a lot of challenges because, like you have to, you're effectively trying to provide sort of 24/7 guest support or like good host support, but that person only works sort of Monday to Friday. And so like pretty soon, like I think it's pretty tricky to do that with just one person in the city. We sort of had to have two people just so they could work weekends and like, that they wouldn't go crazy just being by themselves trying to like launch a market. So yeah, that's kind of how we separated things, was between hosts and guests. And then as the business grew, we started to centralize more of those functions. So things like finance, marketing, and even sales and that type of thing.
A lot of hosts that are trying to start their own management companies, growing and marketing is always a challenging issue. Marketing and finding reliable cleaners. We'll get to the cleaners, but marketing. What were you guys doing? Were you guys like door knocking on every these 1,600 properties, or how did you start to scale?
Yeah, we started by just contacting landlords via this channel called Spare Room in the UK. It's kind of similar to like a Craigslist where landlords can post their properties on there, and we were doing a lot of outbound through there. We also did a lot of outbound through Airbnb, just contacting like hosts that looked like they either were getting bad reviews because they might have like 3 out of 5 star like property or something like that. So you could contact them and say, hey, like do you need any help hosting? Not that you're getting bad reviews, but do you want someone else to do this for you? But those weren't like, I'm not sure they're the most like scalable type marketing initiatives. They did get us a few hosts in the beginning, but I think the majority of our hosts came through like online marketing channels, so like our website and that type of thing, and then pretty much just through referrals after that when we were able to build up a big base of hosts.
Can you kind of help us visualize what what your guys' growth was. It was from like 5 properties when you joined, and then you said you were bootstrapped for about a year and a half. What was the progression of the units and at to where you are today at 1,600?
I mean, I remember we were just always busy, like always just thinking the next month type thing. I mean, I don't know, like in terms of numbers, like what it looked like. It wasn't like this. It was pretty steady growth, like each month, from what I remember. I mean, I guess, at certain points you just start to run into different problems, and I remember getting to like 50 or 60 units, and things started to break in terms of our processes. So we always needed to like just continually rethink things, and I don't know. I guess I'm not sure. I don't remember like specifically like specific moments of like, oh yeah, this is how it was at that point. But it just kind of grew this similar pace each month is what I felt like, and it was always busy. You always sort of catching your tail.
There wasn't any like pivotal moment where it's just like you figured something out, and it was just like, wow, all these new properties started coming in, because really you started out a little bit different. You started across the U.S., but this Paris, London area, you started off with 5, and then you get to 50, and then like everybody else that is hosting, once you get to a certain number, things start to break. The same processes that you had before when you were at 5 is not going to be the same when you have 50. But there was a point where you really started probably taking off, or something maybe clicked. What do you remember when that was?
I mean, I think we've just consistently grown like steadily over time. Like it hasn't been like this blitzkrieg thing of like, we've doubled in 1 month or something like that. I mean, like when you have small cities, yeah, you can double in size. But I think like the main thing is minimizing churn. So like taking on the right owners. Like I think, yeah, I mean, just thinking about it now, like, we kind of figured out at some point, like we got a better handle on like which properties we want to target, which owners are like the best for us. And that could be, say, down to like the different areas in the city where, like maybe you can make more on short-term rental versus long-term rental, or the types of hosts that you want. Do you want to target investors, or do you want to target like, primary residence owners and this type of thing? And so we started to get a better handle on like our unit economics in terms of like, okay, this property is located here. It's going to generate this amount per month, and that leads to X amount of profit or loss, right? So we were able to maybe target the properties that were better for us, and then and that, I guess, like helps to also minimize churn, because then if you're targeting the right properties that you'll have for, say, like longer periods of time, you're getting a more efficient spend on your marketing and your sales efforts. So yeah, I think that would probably be the main thing.
So when you first started off, it sounds like you were really trying to just pick up any property that anybody had. But then what really started to work best for you was when you figured out what exactly your target customer is and how you can best serve them. And then once you knew how, this, even down to the specific type of property that you were targeting, that's when you started like marketing towards those people.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like all of those, it's not to say that when we started, we took on everything. It's just more like we didn't have the awareness to say this was like, this property is going to be a loss leading property, or like, this is not a good deal for us for X, Y, and Z reasons, or like, so, I mean, I think that's maybe something that's important to define early on. And like, even if you have a small portfolio, you'll get a good sense of like what properties are performing the best, for you. So that maybe that research can be done pretty easily. And even like tools like AirDNA and stuff can provide you with pretty good sort of revenue management tools to understand like, this property is going to generate this much per night, so I can charge a commission of X, or like, I'm going to pay this in rent per month. So I think it's maybe easier to do that now, and something that we could have done better to begin with.
Going off of that, what is, when you're working with a property owner at this point now, what does it look like? How are you able to still provide that same level of service to your clients? Are you, when you reach out to them, are you like helping them analyze their property, or are you going for completely new people that don't even know about the space? How do you take a person along that customer acquisition journey?
Yeah, like we have on our website, we have a calculator where you can input your address, and it will tell you, on a per monthly basis what what you should generate, per property per month. So that helps hosts like get a good sense of, whether this is like a viable alternative to, either long-term renting or, whilst they're away, or what have you. When they do on board with us, like we, as I mentioned, like we have a dedicated account manager who, is in charge of that host, and can help them to onboard their property and help them to furnish the property and that type of thing. And like they'll provide them advice as to like what will sell the best. Like whether it's like adding an extra like a sofa bed or like extra amenities to the property that otherwise wouldn't be available. And then basically after that, like we have like a team that's available, Monday to Fridays, in terms of account management, but then hosts like we have a 24/7 guest communication team. So, even if there's like a big emergency or something like that, generally there's someone available for a host if they need to have support. And like the account managers that we have, they have a very good relationship with each owner. So it's more of a partnership than it will be, it's a sort of strict like customer client relationship. So we work with the property owners to also like try and improve their properties, because for us it means that we can make more money, but then they also make more money. So like the feedback loop for reviews and stuff like that is quite good, in terms of owners like can see all the reviews for their listings on our on our system and that type of thing. That helps them to make those changes.
When you first started, you had around, you get 5, you get 50, figured out your processes. Then you really started figuring out how you could best serve your clients. At that point, how did you start to scale? Was it were the properties that you knew that were performing well? Were you just like, targeting those specific locations, and how are you getting more people that you knew that you wanted, into your business?
Yeah, I mean, we I guess defined in our cities like where it is that we want to operate, and so like when we had interest from different areas like that weren't inside those locations, we would reject a lot of leads. So I guess that's one way that we did that. I mean, I think that's we haven't really gone down like a model of like doing leases, this master lease model that some other companies like Slumber do, where they lease apartments and sublease them. Like our main core business is sort of this commission revenue split model. So for that, like it's we haven't like targeted like estate agencies or specific properties to say like we want to lease this for X dollars or X pounds per month and then sublet it after that. It's more been a case of like filtering the interest that we get through like the channels.
But what's your primary method of finding those ideal clients? Is that like a Google, or are you doing ads, or do you have like a blog? How are you acquiring these new people?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure how much I can maybe go into that, but it's like I would say it's we were quite successful through online campaigns.
Online campaigns, and
Yeah.
you were getting very specific with the types of people that you were looking for.
Yeah, I mean, we for us, like, we will take sort of, there's two kind of types of hosts, I guess. There's like the primary residence host and then the investor host. Like the investor hosts, I think are great because, like they're yield focused, but they're not also like emotionally attached to each property. So if you provide a really good service to them and you get them the returns that they're looking for, then they'll stay with you for a long time, because like they want a passive investment. So if you can handle that for them and you can make them the money, I think that's like a really win-win situation. So we really like investors, and so we really like to work with investors if we can find them. So that's definitely something we target if we are doing sort of like outreach and that type of thing.
I'm going on your site, GuestReady.com, and I mean it's very minimal, very simple. It's just got a bunch of different cities that you guys are operating out of. But when you're targeting people, and you said, what I really love is you said you have your typical homeowner, and then you have your investor clients. These two different types. Investors are typically, more analytical. They're more numbers driven. The homeowner maybe needs a little bit more hand holding along with them. But when I go to your site, I don't see too much information. Are you guys like creating a different type of resource or a different site that is like a landing page for people that you're driving them to, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I would say most of the leads that come through our website are, like, I guess, typically primary residence owners. We probably get I mean, like, I think that there's the investors and like the sort of big fish clients, are more. We generally are able to get them not through like inbound leads, it's more through like networking and that type of thing. So for that, that's why our website's pretty simple. Yeah, I guess like both strategies can work. It's just a case of like where you put your resources, and I think that having a good website is pretty easy to do nowadays. And I mean that for us, it's just been a really easy way to reach a lot of people.
You said networking for investor clients. Are you guys going out? Is everything online, or are you doing like boots on the ground, going to events and stuff like that for networking? How are you expanding your investor client base?
Yeah, we do. We participate in a few events in different cities across the world. Like we try and create like partnerships with real estate companies as well. A lot of real estate companies are looking to get into shortlets or do get demand from shortlet companies, or from shortlet, sorry, not companies, but from owners that want to do shortlets. So we're able to partner with them. That can be quite a good way, to have that sort of win-win relationship with them in terms of like maybe sharing the revenues with them and that type of thing. But yeah, otherwise, like in big cities like London, Paris, Dubai, and stuff like there are a lot of like developers that are looking for yield, and in most cases like short-term rentals can provide that better yield than long lets. So like we do try and have good relationships with those types of people.
What are some of the biggest differences from when you first started operating to where you're operating now? I'm sure that, lots of things have changed, but are there like things that are like completely different from when you first started off?
I would say probably on the operations side, we are just like we're just much better, much more efficient, much more like the processes are just much more advanced. On the tech side as well, like we have put a lot of time and effort into building our own PMS software and that type of thing, and that's really helped us to scale on the operations side in terms of keeping costs low, in terms of providing a good service, having really good visibility on what's going on in the properties and that type of thing. So yeah, when we first started, we didn't really have any sort of tech tools to help us to grow. It was very like Google Sheets orientated and stuff, and that like just doesn't really scale that well. Because you also can't link things together that well and that type of thing. So probably like the tech side is the big one in terms of operations, and even I guess on the account management side, I think it's really helped a lot.
From where you guys are right now, 1,600 units. Obviously you have to be able to cut costs in different ways. And there's a lot of tools out in the market right now that probably weren't around. They were still in development when you first started. We have tools like Properly, Turnover B&B for cleaning. There's like GuestReady and Your Porter, Hostfully, all these different tools for PMSs. But when you get to a certain point, being able to implement your own systems and create your own processes and your own like PMS or your own task management software, seems like that's the logical way to go. Is that what everybody else is doing though? All these other companies that are, these heavy hitters in the property management space, are they all utilizing other people's software, or do they all start creating their own in-house suite of tools?
I mean, I think it depends on the company. Like I know some big companies, at least in Europe, that still use third-party tools, and I know big companies that have their own software. I mean, like we were always like a tech-enabled property manager, so we're always looking for ways in which we can use technology to help us be more efficient and scale. So we started off by using a lot of third-party tools, and there are a lot of really good ones on the market. What we found is like a lot of those tools are really good at sort of like niche like things, like Properly is really good for task management, but we really wanted to have our own system, because like there was a lot of things that we still couldn't do. So we started to build our own system over time, and you can link a lot of these apps together through APIs and this type of thing. But in some cases, you're sort of able to automate the workflow maybe 70 to 80%. So we really looked at like each process, like step by step, and how we can automate that process. And I think that when you sort of do things over and over and over again, especially when you start to get a lot of properties, you start to notice like where the inefficiencies are. And so we built our own PMS software that links in with a channel manager, and now we sort of have like a pretty full suite of functionality that kind of covers, like, I think really most of the rentals, like in terms of like what we need to do to manage them. There's not really any sort of third party tools that we use for like on the property management side that we haven't got in house now.
So you don't, is there like a certain point when it's best suited? Because I imagine when you're working with third party, things might break when you're managing 1,600 units and you're using someone else's software. If something breaks, that's going to cost a lot of money, and it's also going to be troublesome because now you have to deal with another company, their tools. Are they integrating with other tools? And when you're scaling to 1,600 units, your whole business revolves around how you're able to handle your operations. Were there ever any instances where like just something broke and then just like all hell went loose? Because even as smaller managers, like if let's say Airbnb has an issue, like everybody, the whole world freaks out. You can't log into your portal. Does that happen when you're at 1,600 units?
I'm not going to name. I'm not going to name names. We were using another software. Like when we first started, we didn't have our own software, so we were using like a PMS software that I remember one day, like they were using Airbnb's unofficial API. I'm not really sure the reason why, but like there's two different types of API you can get with Airbnb. You use the unofficial one because like there's some functionality you can't access through the official API, and because of that, the unofficial one is much more unstable sometimes. And I remember, I think this was like maybe we were at 500 or so. But I remember it was like coming into the weekend, and basically we realized that like we had about, I don't know, a couple of hundred Airbnb accounts and we weren't receiving any messages. So we were just kind of like, it's coming up to 3 p.m. check-in time, and we're like, oh God, like we know guests are going to be contacting us saying, I'm outside or I'm stuck or I'm locked out, and we just have no visibility on it whatsoever. And that went on for about 2 days, and it was really, really painful to manage. So I think like the key takeaway is like to have, it's really important when you get to that size, you need to have really reliable tech, because otherwise like the issues get compounded really, really fast. And it's really hard to have like a consistent level of service if things break.
Like you were saying, I mean, two days of not being able to send messages, and because you were using a tool that was using this unofficial API. How do you manage all of the hosts and the people that you're helping them make money? Because if you're, this is somebody's property that you're working on and you're trying to, help them maximize their return, and because, maybe you scaled a little bit too much, now, things are kind of breaking. How do you handle that with your investor clients?
Yeah, I mean, I guess this comes down to having good risk management procedures in place. Like, I mean, if we're using if we're using any tools, they need to be good, they need to be robust, and they need to be reliable, I guess. And we don't use that software anymore. I mean, we have our own now internally and stuff, and it works really, really well. So I guess like that sort of just comes into the the forefront of our minds when you get to a certain point. It's like, okay, if things do go down for 1 day, 1 hour, like what impact that's going to have on the business, and trying to mitigate that.
For people that are, let's say, at that 50 unit mark, how do you start to scale operations? Like what are the people that you need in place, or what are the things that you need to be able to do to be able to get up to, that 100, 200, 500 unit count?
Yeah, I think like what we did initially was we partnered with a lot of third-party providers that, like, things like cleaning companies, maintenance companies. I think if you can get some really good partnerships and really good connections with good quality companies that do a really good job, then you can scale. And I would say, when even when you're small, when you're big, like don't rely on just one partner to be able to do that job. You need to have backup plans in place. Like I know in some markets, like in Paris, like when we were growing, there was a lot of companies using the same cleaning company, and that cleaning company went out of business. And so for a lot of companies, like they're trying to cover 50 to 100 jobs on one day, sort of on the day, trying to deal with that. Because I think as a short-term rental manager, like you're kind of 6 or 7 businesses in one. You're like a cleaning company, you're like a guest, concierge company, you're a revenue manager. So to outsource those functions, if you can do it well, I think like saves you a lot of time and hassle. I would say, on the guest communication side of things, I see a lot of companies have like outsourced or at least gotten like virtual assistants in like, lower cost centers in the world. I think that's a pretty good strategy if you can get it right. There are some companies you can go through to do that, but and there's other companies you can outsource that too. But if you can find, good people in the Philippines or and that type of thing, I think that's a really low cost way of providing like, a really long level of support. And like when I mean long level, I mean like covering more hours of the day. If you're in Europe and you have someone in the Philippines, they can cover the nights when you're asleep, and that means that you don't have to have people on call and this sort of thing. So that's probably something I would think about if you're especially in a city where like the margins are pretty tight. It's worth considering.
So, in this space, like you said, there's like 6 different businesses that you could essentially have that you're managing as a short-term rental property manager. For a business at scale, does it not make more sense to keep things in-house? Like you said, the technology, you're building that in-house, and we'll talk a little bit more about what you're building and what you're offering as well in a little bit. But for, let's say, like cleaning, I mean, you have 1,600 units, and you said that you're outsourcing it to other companies. Does it not make more sense to keep it in-house and have your own full-time cleaning staff, or what's your perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, for our business now, we pretty much most of our cities are in-house. It really depends. It's very case by case basis. Like I think, there are some locations we work in where we're able to find really good partners, and it's just easier for us to outsource that. I mean, now we're at a stage where like we have some really good knowledge of how to train, manage, and retain cleaners. So like, in terms of bringing that in-house, I think that's like something that we can do well now. But, when we were smaller, it's a big learning curve. So we just, we look at it on a case-by-case basis. Like if it's getting really expensive, we can look at it and say, okay, is it going to be cheaper in-house? How are we going to do that? And just sort of tackle it case-by-case. But I don't think it's a one-size-fits-all sort of solution, in probably the biggest cities we're in, we have got it in-house, and that's mainly, yeah. I mean, it's probably just because like we have worked with partners, and then we realized we could do it either cheaper internally, or we wanted to strive for high quality or different things. I think housekeeping is something that's really tricky, because like those cleaners are like the backbone of your business. So to outsource it, you need to do it well. You need to make sure you find good partners, and otherwise, yeah, it's just if you can find a really good cleaner, like it can make a world of difference in terms of the headaches you can reduce.
How do you guys manage that? Because cleaners are such an essential part of the business, and being able to have the same standard across the board at every property, making sure that every property is checked. Do you have someone that's going and actually viewing the units after every cleaning, or do you just like is there like a separate like onboarding process for these cleaners whenever you take them under your guys' company? How does that whole process work?
Yeah, we operate in a few different ways. Like in markets where we're doing in-person check-in, the person who's doing the check-in can quality control the cleaning. Like when our cleaners are in the property, they can fill in a checklist of items. They can upload photos and that type of thing, and then we have like a quality assurance like manager that can check over those photos. I mean, you're not going to see things like dust and that type of thing, and that's why we kind of have that 2-step process in place. If we're doing, say, self-check-in, we do a certain amount of spot checking of those cleaners. We are also, through our software, able to pair up the ratings that cleaners get from Airbnb, and so you can see for each cleaner like what score they're getting from the guests. So it's quite easy to identify which cleaners are doing a really good job and which ones are maybe underperforming. And then in some cases, we also do video calls with our cleaners, like when maybe they're first starting out, just to make sure that they get everything right in terms of staging the property, in terms of like inventory, and also like cleaning, like small details under the bed or like in the oven, and just making sure that they have a really good understanding of what they need to do. And I think like having a few of those sort of processes in place has really meant we can consistently do a good job.
Do you have a dedicated person that is interviewing cleaners and, verifying cleaners when they do their first cleaning, or are you just finding like agencies that already are operating that you can trust?
Yeah, we have like a housekeeping manager that's like a central housekeeping manager that helps out with recruiting and that type of stuff. I mean, in the big cities, it's been pretty easy to find good cleaners. Like there's like it's kind of created a little ecosystem of suppliers that sort of, hasn't been like crazy hard to find like good cleaners. It's just about retaining them, I think, is like the challenge. And I'd probably say for that side of things, like you kind of get what you pay for when it comes to cleaning. And you need to treat those cleaners as if they're like the backbone of your business. Like, I mean, they are as important as your revenue managers or your account managers and stuff like that. So we try and make those staff like super valued in our business in terms of like the recognition that they get from guests and hosts and that type of thing. Because if you can get good cleaners and retain them, it's like the core of your business almost.
Do you do the linen for 1,600 units, or are you outsourcing that?
Again, it is kind of case by case basis. We have some cities where we operate where it is in house, and then somewhere it's outsourced. So it sort of just depends on like the local partners that are available in the cities, and then the cost and the economics of each property.
And for, let's say, amenities, are you, as part of your full service, are you replenishing amenities? And what does that look like when you have different amenities in different units, across the world even? I mean, are you using like Amazon to like, basically reorder stuff for these different places? Or do you have like different lists for different properties about what they need?
Yeah, I mean, like we do, it kind of works on a city by city level again, just depending on like whether we sort of run things like remotely, where say we have companies that can deliver that sort of stuff with linen, then they might do the replenishment then. Or if we have like our own central linen storage, we can do it through that, which is a lot easier. Generally, like we try and provide the same sort of amenities across the board for guests, across like different markets, so that the experience is largely the same. But there are some cases where we provide different things. Like in Dubai, we provide bottles of water for guests because like the drinking water is not that good there. So small things like that. And also in Dubai, it's like 45 degrees outside. So guests usually appreciate some water, whereas like, in London, that's not as needed.
What's been the most challenging part of scaling this business?
I think at different points, like the processes break. It's usually when you get sort of 3x, like every time you go up three times, it starts to get tricky again. Like, I mean, when we another thing that we sort of did was like when we started, we knew that we were going to try and scale this like pretty fast. So that every time we sort of review processes, we try and implement something that's relatively scalable. But yeah, I mean, the building like a team is definitely like a challenge. It's something you need to get right, especially when you expand into new markets. It is like a people management business, like this, and it's relationship driven. So like having really good people is really critical. But yeah, I'd say like the operation side of things is definitely, as you get bigger, it becomes a much bigger challenge of getting it right.
Is there anything different from? Is there anything really different from a person that's managing a portfolio of 5 or 50 properties versus 1,600? Is it like a totally different beast, or is it essentially the same thing, just a little bit more complex?
I would say like on the host facing side, it's probably pretty similar in terms of like the day-to-day challenges that owners have and dealing with those and their needs. I'd say on the operations side, it becomes like a big beast of different challenges. Like just when you get to a certain size, you need to start to have really robust like quality control processes in place, because you kind of lack visibility on the local level when you're not able to know your property portfolio just by going to every property. Like that's when it starts to become a bit scary in terms of what can happen, and like, kind of losing that control. So that's something that we focused a lot on, and also just like building in like scalable processes in terms of like documenting your processes and standardizing them across like all of your properties is really, really important.
Is the way that you document processes and implement processes the same as if you are a smaller manager versus 1,600 properties?
Well, I mean, like if we were to change any process now, it becomes like a big project, right? I mean, even something as simple as like adding a bottle of water to every guest stay becomes like a big project that has 10 different stakeholders, and so I say when you're small, most of the stuff's just in your head, and you can coordinate really easily internally between people and say, hey, now we're going to offer a bottle of water, and everyone's like, cool, great. But when you get bigger, you need to have like a lot more structure in place, and otherwise, like it's things can slip through.
I imagine that it'd be very, very challenging because you're so focused on trying to grow the business, but at the same time, you have to have that same level of care that you had when you had 5 units. How do you manage that relationship between being able to still have an awesome service and be able to help your investors and your clients and the guests, as well as scale exponentially or scale very, very rapidly to a large amount at the same time?
I mean, I think as you get bigger, it maybe becomes easier to provide like a more consistent, good service. Maybe what you lose or is harder to achieve is that really personal connection with guests, because they're not texting like Dave, who's the Airbnb host, who like lives in New York or whatever it is. Like they're speaking to like multiple people. We try and internally like promote like this idea of having like continuity in the guest communication when there's like people calling in. So like we built some kind of smart automations that sort of help with that. We have like a virtual call center that like routes calls based on whether you've spoken to someone before to that same person, so that if there's issues they can follow up pretty easily. In our inbox, we have like a way of like logging sort of every single interaction, so it's really easy to sort of see like what's happened in the past if you're sort of picking a case up. So we've tried to use technology a little bit to facilitate that, but it's definitely a challenge as you get bigger that you need to sort of address.
And talking about that technology, because you're actually doing something pretty interesting, is you're actually taking the things that you're using internally, and you're planning on releasing that to the public as well. What is that? How did that even come about? Like, did you identify something that was lacking in the market that you decided to fill? Why are you releasing something that was internal that allowed you to be able to scale and manage effectively to the public?
Yeah, I mean, like as across like our journey of the last 3 years, like we've been building this software that is mainly for internal use, and we were able to solve some really like big pain points that we had as a business that we weren't really getting with the external tools that were available on the market. So it kind of came out of an identification of that look, like what we have is really, really good. It's an all-in-one software, and we've been able to bring in like all the sort of tools that you need to run this business in one place. And so we thought, let's see what demand there is on the market. I mean, there are companies like that have raised big amounts of money by providing these types of software, and I think that now, at the moment, we've only just sort of started releasing that to the public. We are working with other property managers now that use the software, and it's been really good feedback. So we're like looking to grow that this year. So yeah, it's going to be pretty exciting to see what comes of that.
Who is this for? Is this for the 1,600 plus property managers, or is this for the people that just have 1 or 2 units? Or what's the target for this?
I mean, I would say probably it works really at any sort of size. We've built some really good tools to like monitor quality in terms of like the turnover, cleaning, check-in, review management, and this type of thing. So I think it works best for property managers, maybe sort of 50 units plus. But in saying that, even if you have 5 units and you use our software, you'll get a lot of value out of it because it provides, like all the sort of tools that you need to run this business sort of in one place. And it means as well you don't need to sort of patch a lot of different tools together. So if you're not like super tech savvy and don't have like a good understanding of like how to link everything together, then I think it can provide a really good solution.
So this is a PMS as well as a channel manager, or is it just the PMS?
So it's a PMS and channel manager, yeah.
But you also said that it has other features. Are you kind of going for like the guesty feel where you have the automated messaging? Are you including like dynamic pricing in there and all these different tools?
Yeah. So we have quite a lot of automation tools, like things like the auto messages, the auto reviews. We have some payment processing automations that also like split the money to each owner. So like you can receive the money from say like the OTAs into a virtual wallet, and then it splits the money based on the commission structure you have with your owners. So you never need to pay your owners at the end of the month. It's got like, we have like, automated pricing tools, like things like the revenue management tools. Like you can build an algorithm based on your market and have it like fluctuate based on seasonality, and try and target like specific bookings, like long bookings if you want, with certain ways of doing it. We also developed a way of sort of hacking Airbnb's SEO by like changing your calendar availability each day, just in terms of like the price. If you update it sort of €1, £1 each day, it boosts your Airbnb ranking. So we're able to sort of hack that. We have like a really good like task management system that's like an iOS and Android app that cleaners and meet and greeters can use to do all their tasks, and they can upload like feedback and that type of thing. And then like on the owner side of things, we have like a really good owners portal that like owners can open and close dates, they can book in cleans and change their prices if you want, and see like all their reviews from guests. So it's a pretty sort of comprehensive tool. I'd say probably it's similar to like one of the sort of other all-in-one PMSs like Guestio or Avantio or Kigo, that type of thing.
Is this for people that are looking to simplify their operations, or people that are looking to save money, or is it for the extra little suite of tools that maybe are for optimizing the business? What are the benefits of using this internal tech that you guys are now going to be releasing to the public?
Yeah, I think it kind of covers a few different bases. Like there's like on the revenue generation side of things, like our pricing algorithm will help you to optimize your prices so that you can get better bookings for your homes. We also have ways on that side to upsell services to guests, which you can do really easily through like affiliate marketing links that you can add into our software that just generate you extra money per booking. I mean, we built it more as a case of like efficiency in terms of like simplifying things and reducing costs. So I think on that side of things, that's probably where we're strongest at. That's where we've built like the most automations and that type of thing. So it's really like I guess like our product market fit is probably like, these tech-enabled property managers that want to grow their portfolio in like a really lean way.
How much have you guys been able to save by turning things internally versus having to outsource using all these different services?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty hard. It's hard to say, like, because there's so many different things we've done to sort of save costs. But like, I mean, we have been able to grow our portfolio sort of with like a really similar headcount for a certain amount, like, and a certain amount of time, I should say. So like we have noticed, like, in terms of staff costs, that it has made a big difference on that side. What we sort of did was like map out each process in terms of how many clicks you need to get to a certain thing to do something, and then try to reduce that down. And a lot of the time we have everything sort of on one page, so you have the information that you need to make that decision in front of you. But again, it is pretty hard to quantify, when it comes to like the staff time.
Well, I mean, like even just talking about like for, smaller hosts when they're just starting off, maybe a dynamic pricing tool is going to charge them 1%. Once they take up some more units, maybe it drops down to like 0.75. When they're using your tool though, because everything's included, should this be saving property managers a lot of fees that they would have to pay towards all these other tools?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like, what I find just from speaking to other property managers is they use probably 5 or 6 different tools to manage their business, and like when you add up sort of all the costs of that, it starts to get pretty expensive on a per property basis. In some cases they're paying sort of like 30 to 60 euros per property per month easily. So I think from that side of things, we're able to save the money, but also I think that because we have everything in one place, it really starts to become a lot easier to manage, because like those tools, they have APIs and things that are getting pushed and pulled to them, but in a lot of cases, it's not perfect.
Yeah, and like you were talking about earlier, when you have all these different tools that your business depends on, and then one of the APIs just doesn't work, or one of the tools just isn't working right. Let's say the dynamic pricing just all of a sudden it changes, and now all your places are $1. So, maybe that wouldn't happen, but if it does, I mean, your whole business is dependent on these other services.
Yeah, exactly, and like you also don't have as much influence on on the roadmaps of what those companies are going to do in future. So, we work pretty closely with our property managers to help them, either grow their business and in a few different ways. But we also, like, if they need things, they're also able to influence our roadmap. And a lot of the time, like the things that they say they need are things that we need or that other property managers need.
Awesome. And do you guys have a time frame on when this should be out?
Yeah, I mean, I think we are sort of like in a release at the moment. Like, we are working with other property managers on this software. I think, like, in terms of a full release, probably like in the middle of February, we're ready.
Okay, so by the time this episode is out, it should be out. I'll include a link down in the description for those that are interested in finding out some more information about that. Yeah, this has just been so awesome, Shannon. It's very unique to be able to talk to one of the people. Like, I'm looking at this list of some of the other competitors in the space, and you guys are like right up there where all these other heavy hitters are, like Sonder, Lyric, Bungalow, some of these other management companies. So it's really cool and really special to be able to talk to you. We'd love to get you on another show at some point to talk more about your process and definitely talk with you some more. You're just a wealth of knowledge, and I just think it's so cool for you to be able to share this information with the community. Is there anything else that you'd like to share, Shannon, before we head off? The question that I forgot to ask that is so important that I love asking people is, what would you do? What would GuestReady do if you had to start from scratch?
I mean, we definitely like launched in a few markets where like it was either unfavorable for like regulation or like the market opportunity and this type of thing. So probably having a better understanding of the unit economics of the market in terms of what our staff costs would have been, what the market would have generated, and that type of thing. Because like there was a few markets that we did close down after a certain amount of time that sort of weren't viable for us for a variety of reasons. But that was, so I think like knowing your market is super key.
Knowing unit market. And what does that look like when regulations do change? If you're managing, all these properties in the Paris, London area, and then let's say, regulations do change and how does that impact the business at scale like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think regulation is good. Like, there needs to be a responsible level of hosting. So we are happy to work with like government agencies or like boards that are sort of looking to enforce good standards across the industry to make it a more sustainable model for everyone in the business. Like, I think in big cities like London and Paris, there are areas that are like very overpopulated with sort of Airbnbs or short-term rentals, and I think that does cause some issues. So it's like important as a property manager to be responsible for that. So I think like ultimately, like we have a model that's like sustainable within the realms of the legislation in terms of how it's enforced and that type of thing. So I'm really happy to see that there is regulation.
When you are at such a large scale, are you just completely dependent on the regulations changing? Like, let's say things change, is your whole business kind of like SOL at this point, or do you, when you have scaled to a certain level, are you working a little bit closer with local legislation and how your business operates, or is it just completely up to their whim?
No, I mean, we do like we do participate in helping to like professionalize the industry and working with like regulators and that type of thing to enforce good standards. I think it's good to have a finger on the pulse in terms of what's going on, just for your own sake. And I think like as well to have, there's some good like alliances in the UK of membership boards that sort of help to lobby, like and or not so much lobby, but just more a case of like educating people that are in City Hall and that sort of thing as to like what stance is a good sustainable model for the city, and not sort of go sort of one way just based on say like some issues that like neighbors might have and that type of thing. So yeah, like it's definitely something that we wish to stay actively in.
And what's I'm curious as to what you would say. I always ask hosts, what's the question that you would ask the next professional or another professional host, maybe someone that is at a similar level than you, or maybe the next level. What would you ask them? Like if you could pick the brain of any of the other companies that are maybe a few steps ahead of you or doing something different, what would you ask them?
I mean, like our company's been like very much focused on growth, so I guess it would be like a growth hack question of like, what are the things you're doing differently to us? Like, I do network with a lot of other companies in our space. So like, it's always really interesting to hear how other people are running their businesses and like the challenges they face. I mean, they're usually the same sort of stuff that we're dealing with. Yeah, probably on the growth side would be the most interesting.
Is that when you get to where your level are all the challenges for all the other managers basically the same? Is it customer acquisition and expanding your portfolios, or is everybody kind of have different challenges?
I think there's always different challenges. Like, there's just, when a company starts to get bigger, like the challenges they become different. Like it's, for us, it's not just about acquisition of customers. It's about, like having a really, really good team and that sort of thing. It depends also what your strategy is, right? Like if you're a company that's like just looking to grow, then like growth is going to be the number one thing. If you want to be like super profitable, then, like your objectives are going to be different. So, yeah, maybe for us, like, we're still looking to grow quite a lot. So.
And last real quick question is from where do you see short-term renting, vacation rentals, and this whole property management business going in the future? Is this a pretty fresh space? Is it too late for people to get in? What's your thoughts?
I mean, I don't think it's too late to get in because it's a very hyper localized model in terms of working with owners or real estate agents and that type of thing. I do see a trend, at least in Europe, and I guess also in the States, of like a market consolidation of like some big players sort of coming together over the last couple of years. I don't really see why that won't continue. And you've got like companies like Oyo, Sonda that are raising like, big rounds that are sort of moving into Europe and also like have been big in the States, maybe not so much Oyo, but I think that will continue for at least another few years. And there probably will be like some kind of really big professional players operating in like the key markets like in Europe and the US. But still, like there's a lot of opportunity. If you're a small property manager, you can still, make really good business out of hosting and growing it like sort of from a small scale.
Well, thank you so much, Shannon, for taking, I know we've gone a little bit past our time, but you provided such a wealth of information. I'll include all the ways that they can reach out to you, how they can find out about this tech that you are going to be releasing by the time this episode goes out, and the website and everything. Do you guys already have a name for it? What are you guys calling this tech?
Yeah, it's called Rental Ready.
Rental Ready? Okay. So Rental Ready, I'll include that in the show notes. And thank you so much again, Shannon. And until next time, Host Nation, keep on hosting. Hope you hosts benefited from the show. If you found value, please go on over to iTunes, leave us a review, and let us know what you enjoy about the show. If you'd like to talk to hosts that have been featured in these episodes as well as the community, go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation.